Our feedback we give to one another is biased through our own filters. It's not instant, and we can't actually give pure feedback. So with horses, it's an opportunity to come into a space and really witness what your energy is doing, how it's impacting the horses, so you can really be conscious of, and I think create greater self-awareness of that. And I think feel like you have a safe place to receive feedback on your impact. Whether I'm working with individuals or companies, I think we can also feel vulnerable, or often feel vulnerable in receiving feedback. With horses, I think we feel safe because it's non-judgmental. And so we're able, I think, to absorb an awareness of ourselves in a way that we can receive it and to see it, which I think can lead to sort of transformation and adopting maybe a way of behaving or being or interacting with the world and with ourselves that is more authentic to who we want to be.
So you're a smart business committed to innovation, to service and to modern marketing, and you're asking, what's next? Wondering how you can become even more innovative. My name is Jürgen Strauss from Innovabiz, and this is the InnovaBuzz Podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Hi innovators, it's that time of week again, and it's great to be back with you and with another episode of the InnovaBuzz Podcast. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz Podcast as my guest today, HillarySchneider of the Epona Rise Retreat. Hillary is a leadership coach who provides mentorship and guidance to visionaries and entrepreneurs. And she does that with the help of her herd of rescue horses. This is another fascinating interview. Today's episode is brought to you by the Transformational Marketing Hub, where you'll find a host of free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. You can access the Transformational Marketing Hub by visiting innovabiz.co/VIP. If you don't have an account, just click on the blue Take a Peek Inside button. As I said, it's free and exceptionally useful, and especially for you, my podcast audience. In our discussion today, Hillary talked to me about the purpose and leadership and how the biggest barrier is often our own fear about embracing our purpose. We talked about what we can learn from observing horses in the herd, awareness of our surroundings, structure and empowerment, and more when there is no ego filter. We talked about what the interaction with a horse can teach us and how Hillary works together with the horses to facilitate change in her clients. Without further ado, then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from HillarySchneider. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innovabiz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from British Columbia in Canada, HillarySchneider of the Epona Rise Retreat. Hillary's a leadership coach who provides mentorship and guidance to visionaries and entrepreneurs, helping them build clarity, confidence, and certainty. And it's how she does that that's unique. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that a little today. Welcome to the podcast, Hillary. It's a privilege to have you as a guest.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Now, Ciel Ellis, who was our guest on episode 135 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we interview you and introduced us. So a big hello to Ciel.
Yes, hello to Ciel. She's a dear friend and colleague of mine, and she's actually, come up to our retreat space to do some work with the horses. So she's very familiar with the work.
Yeah, and she suggested that was a really good topic for me to explore with you. So at Epona Rise Retreat, you've got a herd of horses that you've alluded to, and most of them are rescue animals in your herd.
Yes.
And as rescue animals, you've given them a new lease of life and a new purpose in helping facilitate the coaching of your clients. So I'm really fascinated to learn more about how that works. But before we start talking about all things purpose, leadership, horses, let's find out a bit more about you as a person.
As a young child,
Yeah.
what did you want to do when you grew up?
That is a great question. I think that from a really young age, I kind of had this awareness that horses were going to be a big part of my path. I didn't really know what that looked like, but I think I was a kid that was very pulled by this idea of purpose, and without really knowing again what that was going to manifest as. But I was kind of obsessed with that concept of doing something purposeful, and somehow horses would be kind of a part of that path. But I didn't really have I want to be a doctor or anything like that. It was more I want to have purpose and do something meaningful, and horses are somewhere in that picture.
Okay. So when did you kind of discover that you were good at coaching and helping other people discover their purpose and build their leadership skills?
Yeah, well, I actually grew up in a coaching environment. My dad is actually a leader for CTI, and so we were exposed to coaching at a very young age. Like, I think I got my first kind of coaching session at 17, and so that type of environment was kind of ingrained from a young age. I went through the training for coaching in I think 2006, and I think it was going through the training and practicing where I sort of had this getting feedback that I kind of felt like I was a natural at it, or something that I really loved to do. And I think from that, over the years, it's just as I started my coaching practice, it just started to kind of pay attention to the people that were drawn to me, and also conversations that I would have with friends of what people kind of were seeking me out with. I think because I sort of had that, quote unquote achievement of purpose in my life, it kind of became a natural, weaving into my coaching. And I think something that I feel, because I live it so deeply, I felt I was able to kind of assist others, and, other people kind of felt the same. So I think it was kind of through the experience and the development of my own skill set, or passion with empowering others, that emerged.
And when did you discover the power of connecting people with horses as kind of a way to, or as something to bring into that coaching?
Yeah, well, I think as a young girl, I sort of always had this awareness that there was something special about horses. There was something unique about how I felt when I was with them, and I think I always sort of had this fascination of, this can't just be for me. And it was actually through my coach training that I got exposed to, because all I could talk about was horses, that I got exposed to, somebody said there's these women in Minnesota that are doing coaching with horses. And it was sort of like bringing awareness to something I'd felt for a long time, that there's something unique about this animal that I think really supports our own inner journey. And so that kind of connected the dots for me. But I think I sort of had that feeling from a young girl, and I remember thinking I want to share this with other people, because I just felt there was something really special about the connection with horses.
So can you give us a snapshot then of what you do today and why you do it?
Yeah. So that's I'll try to snapshot it as best I can. I think the way that I always like to explain why horses, and it's from a couple of layers. I think horses have this, they've sort of partnered with humans for a very, very long time, and I think there is this kind of mystical, intuitive connection that we feel drawn to with horses. I think they're an embodiment of freedom and empowerment and authenticity that I think speaks to a real deep place to us. They're also prey animals, which is something I really like to speak to, of why they can be such powerful mirrors for us. And as prey animals, they have to read and pick up the energy in their environment for survival. So in the wild, they have to know the difference between, predator just walking through their space, just passing by, and something that's coming to hunt them. So they're really tuned into what's being communicated to them with intention and with energy when anything walks into their space. And so, I think as human beings, we often can have the disconnect, right, of what we're actually communicating with our energy. And And we can be, I think, a little bit sometimes unaware of our impact. And also, if we're having an impact that we don't really want to have, like, why is that happening? So horses as prey, they have that sensitivity. They also don't have an ego. There's no bias. There's no agenda. They don't care how much you're paying for a session or what position you have in a company. It's just purely responding to how you're showing up. And so the feedback that we get from horses is very pure and it's instant. We don't get that with between each other as human beings. Our feedback we give to one another is biased, through our own filters. It's not instant. And we can't actually give pure feedback. So with horses, it's an opportunity to come into a space and really witness what your energy is doing, how it's impacting the horses, so you can really be conscious of, and I think create greater self-awareness of that. And I think feel like you have a safe place to receive feedback on your impact. Whether I'm working with individuals or companies, I think we can also feel vulnerable, or often feel vulnerable in receiving feedback. With horses, I think we feel safe because it's non-judgmental. And so we're able, I think, to absorb an awareness of ourselves in a way that we can receive it and to see it, which I think can lead to sort of transformation and adopting maybe a way of behaving or being or interacting with the world and with ourselves that is more, authentic to who we want to be. What's a little bit unique of, so I don't know if you want to stop there and speak to that. That's a little bit of, why the horses.
So in a way, it's what they're providing is a model for self-awareness that as humans, as you mentioned, we've got so many other filters and things going on that we're perhaps not as self-aware of ourselves as what we could be or what might serve us better.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then the thing that's a little bit unique of how I do it, I in my own experience with the horses would always kind of pay attention to which horse in a herd was approaching me and, who that horse was and what energy do they possess. And I think that there isn't an accident. If my lead horse steps forward for a person, it's kind of giving me a hint perhaps that whatever's going on in their life that they need to work on is maybe connected to their leadership, because he holds that position of leadership. So where I like to honor the individual personalities and kind of energy of each of my horses. And so how I facilitate is I just kind of bring people out. I have 24 horses on my property, and we see what happens, who shows up, who interacts with who, and what's symbolic of that, whether they need to have, what that horse represents for them in their life, or where maybe they're having imbalances, or whether they can, connect to more deeply. So that's sort of an interesting kind of thing of, my facilitation is there's a lot of emphasis on which horse shows up for you. And it's very, very fascinating to kind of watch that. I never know what's going to happen. So it's very pure. It's not, I don't really manipulate the experiences because I think horses read energy way better than we do. So I kind of let them be in control of that reflection. And so it's also a way to also, kind of honor each of the horses that are here and their stories and their wisdom. And I think people really can feel, and they're often blown away by, which horse shows up for them and how that really lands for what's happening in their life and can be an indicator of, that place of self-awareness or leadership that they're needing to step into.
Okay. So depending on what horse connects with your client and how that kind of happens, you then start to work on a particular aspect of their personality or leadership. Yeah. As an example.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm intrigued. What's unique about horses? That's what it intrigues me, because I guess people traditionally, they're mostly comfortable connecting with dogs and cats and birds, perhaps more traditional pets that are perhaps easier to manage around a small space, in a suburban house. Whereas horses is kind of a little bit out of the mainstream. I mean, there are people that are keen riders or they might be into horse racing or showing horses or something like that. But you're about connecting with horses as a companion animal, really, aren't you?
Yeah. And I think I look at it as a medium or a vehicle of, personal development, and the self-awareness. I think a couple things that is unique about horses, I think, like I mentioned before, the prey aspect of a horse, dogs and cats are predators, and dogs and, they're still very sensitive. I think dogs can definitely pick up on our energy and respond accordingly. Horses happen to be just a little bit more heightened, I think, with that because their survival depends on it. The other thing I think is really powerful about horses is their size. I think in a world where we can be kind of half present, right? We're distracted, we're consumed with, our technology and different things. We don't actually have to always be present. Because a horse is so large, and I think it triggers our own prey drive, we actually have to be more present. When I bring people out into the field with the horses, they're not distracted. And I think in that way, their ability to absorb the information that's coming to them, it can be absorbed in a much I think we're not kind of filtering out things because our brain is thinking about something else, because we have to pay attention to this very large animal that's in front of us. And in that way, there's, I think with horses, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physiological. When there's, different research and science out there about how they affect our heart rate. And, I am very always curious, and I think speak about the neuroscience and creating the new pathways in our brain. Coaching does that as well. I think where horses take it to another level is the level of presence that we have to be with them because of their size. If you're not present with a horse, you might be in trouble. And so I think naturally, because people feel that it has them occupy more of themselves. So that's what I think makes it powerful. Even with smaller animals, you can probably still be a little distracted. With a horse. It's, you're kind of really focused on this very large animal that's right in front of you.
That's right. Yeah. You have to be careful that he doesn't accidentally step on your toe or something like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. And by forcing people to have that awareness, it kind of clears the mind, doesn't it? So that, as you said, suddenly you're becoming aware of other things because there's space there.
Yes. And I think as human beings, I think one of our greatest challenges is to get out of our heads, right? We occupy our head, or like coaching, we call it our saboteurs, a lot. With horses, you sort of are kind of moving that out of the way very quickly, because you're grounded in a different way with them. So I find just in terms of, I don't have to spend a lot of time kind of getting through people's deflection or distractions, because the horses kind of take care of that.
Does that for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that can be very powerful because, as you mentioned, getting through people's own distractions or the stuff that they've got going on right now can be very challenging. And,
there's times where I'm coaching someone over the phone where I'm thinking to myself, I really wish I could bring this person in the field with the horses, and it would, make my job a lot easier. But I think the horses get pushed through a lot of those, challenges or barriers we have to move through, as human beings, a lot quicker than we can for each other.
Now, you've got an absolutely beautiful property there in British Columbia. You've got some spectacular photographs on the website, so we'll link to that so that other people can see those. I'm curious because you run retreats there and you bring people up to the property so that they can connect with the horses. And I'm curious how much management and logistical stuff is there, because a property like that obviously needs a fair bit of work. A herd of 26, did you say, horses?
24.
They need care, I would imagine. So how big's your staff there to look after the property and look after the herd?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, and I get that question a lot, people assume that, my horses actually live outside 24/7 and have about, I would say, close to 50 acres that they can roam on. So their care isn't actually that much. I have a volunteer, it's called Workaway. I have volunteer workers that come and we give them room and board. And so we always have like 2 or 3, it's usually girls that are kind of traveling. They want to get an experience of Canada and love horses. And then I have a manager. So there's 1 full-time staff and myself. A lot of our land, because it is for the horses, there's not a lot of maintenance. And the horses are actually, I find, the easy part. I think running a business and we have our lodge and our cabins, and maintaining that is probably more work than the horses are actually pretty easy. I think people, because they don't come in at night, they live outside, they have lots of pasture, they live as a herd. So I find just having an environment that is as naturally close to how horses would live in the wild as possible is very conducive to their well-being, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So there's not a lot of, kind of quote unquote care that goes into having them. We go and spend time with them every day and all of that, but they're pretty self-sufficient in a lot of ways.
Okay, that's good. Do you have any wildlife there that might be a threat to the herd?
With a large herd of horses, not really. There's not a lot of predators that would, if they were going to try to come after a large herd like that, they're probably going to get hurt. Horses can be very powerful. So we don't really have concerns. There's cougars in the area, coyotes, and I think if there was a big pack of wolves, I would be concerned, but we don't really have big packs up here. And a cougar wouldn't try for a horse because the likelihood of a cougar getting hurt with a herd is going to be pretty high. So there's not much kind of predators out here that we have to be too worried about with them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes it a lot easier as well. And as I say, it is a beautiful location, just looking at the photos there. So how often do you run workshops up there?
So our retreat season is probably like end of March to beginning of November. So we have like a fairly decent window, and I do a combination of private retreats and also group retreats. So I would say for the retreat season, I could have anywhere between 2 to 3 retreats a month, with a combination of groups or privates. But we typically have about, let's say, 3 or 4 kind of group retreats that we advertise per year, and then we have our privates, and then I also do corporate and, team and leadership building as well.
Mm-hmm. And how many people typically come on the retreats?
It can be anywhere, for the privates are obviously 1 to 2. And for the groups are typically small, 5 or 6, the ones that I do. Corporate obviously can be a little bit larger. Like we just had a corporate group out here and they had 2 groups of about 16 people. So it sort of depends on the group, but I would say we don't go over about 20 yeah.
Okay, and how long do you run those retreats?
Like how many days they are?
Yeah.
The average is about 3 days, 3 to 4 days is our average length of retreats.
So what kind of process do you go through then in those coaching retreats?
So I think like there's as much time with the horses as we can give, because I think, obviously the depth of it comes from the horse experience, but typically the process is, there's usually like an intention or a theme or a focus for the retreat, something people are coming to work on. Again, I do a lot around sort of purpose and leadership. There's usually time in the morning to just kind of take stock of where people are and what's sort of coming up for them. And then we go out and spend probably about 2 hours with the herd, come in and break for lunch, and then usually do an afternoon kind of debrief of our morning experience and kind of set up the intention for the afternoon, and then head on out again with the horses for another, 2 to 4 hours, depending on the time of year. So a large portion of the process is actually with the herd. And then, there's sort of the debrief. And one of the things that I always like to do with the experiences is really be able to land the learning for people and connect it to how it's applicable then to their life, personally or professionally. And what are some of the things that we can do to really anchor what comes up with the horses and, bring it forward. So after they leave the retreat, it's not that they have an experience that's powerful here. It actually becomes blended into, their day-to-day lives, or again, what they're working on professionally. So, that's what the process tends to look like.
Okay. So do you have an example you can share with us of a transformation that kind of came about as a result of one of those retreats or workshops?
Yeah. So I have, I can talk a little bit about, I had a client, she came to work with me in a 6-month program. And as part of that, we started off with a 3-day retreat with the horses. And she came to me because she was feeling a little bit of like the lack of clarity and a disconnect to what she was doing in her business. And she really wanted to identify her kind of leadership, her authentic leadership style, and also get clarity on kind of the purpose of her business. I think she kind of felt a little bit disconnected from that. So she flew out here from North Carolina and spent 3 days with me. And she's a visual branding artist. So what was really cool is after our experience, she created this whole kind of banner that hangs in her office. And, what was really impactful for her is she really was able to feel, I think, empowered and what her leadership is, and really identify the places of her strength. And that was mirrored a little bit with which horses showed up for her. So she was really able to have sort of that concreteness of how she was being mirrored in her strength with the horses, and understand, what her facilitation process is, and to feel confident about that. And then, got a lot of clarity of, I find the thing that prevents people from having the clarity of purpose is our fear around really claiming it. So we moved through a lot of her fear during that retreat, and she did a complete rebrand with her business. She was able to, I think, claim the clients that she really wanted to. She felt a lot more confident in her, her skill set and her strengths. And, I think it had both a very personal and professional kind of transformation for her. And she's told me that a lot of what came up in that session with the horses is still something she comes back to, that she found really profound and valuable, of just keeping her anchored in her leadership and also in her vision in what she's doing with her business. So that's just an example, one of the examples of that.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. Now, I imagine you don't take every horse that you might be offered or that you might come across in your travels. How do you select horses to bring into the herd?
Yeah, I mean, people think I do because I have a big herd, but I don't. I think, a lot of the horses that I take is I kind of take the ones that I'm kind of their last hope in a lot of ways. So these are horses that are they're not rideable. They wouldn't be suitable to go to a different home. Oftentimes it's like I'm a last resort between a choice of potentially going through an auction to slaughter or euthanasia. So I think, for just the ones that maybe have a better chance of, going to a place where they can be ridden, I take the ones that just, are not the easier ones to kind of find a placement for. And I think the thing, I meet every horse before I say yes to them. And I often kind of get a sense, I think, that they'd be willing partners and would kind of fit with the vibe and the energy of the space. But yeah, I can't say yes to everybody. But I think it's a feel, I think, and also, looking at the horses that kind of really would need a place like me to give them a second chance, or a purpose in life. Yeah.
And how easy is it to integrate a new horse into the herd? Let's say, it's surprisingly really easy. I happen to have, and I was actually sharing this the other week, I have a horse in my herd whose kind of role in the herd is to,
integrate new horses, but also make sure everybody is kind of behaving the way that they need to be. And he is just, he's kind of like, if we were to, in our own terms, he'd be like the policeman or, command in chief, because there's a hierarchy in a herd of horses, and there's rules and there's boundaries, and he's really good about maintaining that. And I think, again, with a bigger herd, they're very strong in their position. So I don't really have a big issue with new horses coming in, especially with my one horse. He's really good at, integrating the new horses. And I think the thing that's really cool about horses is they really empower the leadership. So sometimes there's, they have to sort it out. They have to figure out, where they kind of fit in the hierarchy, but I also have a lot of space. So there's a lot of room for the new horses in the herd to kind of navigate around their personal space as they're figuring it out. And I think that's important too. So like I said, they've got, like 40 to 50 acres of space. So nobody's getting cornered or not being able to get away as they're kind of figuring each other's energies out. So it's typically pretty easy to transition.
Fascinating. Yeah, it sounds like even in that there's lots of lessons for us as people.
Yeah. I will tell you, just watching a herd of horses, because there's a lead, and this is like an activity that I often do with corporate and teams, just watching a herd of horses and how they embody the leadership and empower the hierarchy, we can learn a lot. It's very fascinating. I think it sounds like a very simple exercise, but people find it quite profound, just in terms of where it really resonates in some of our dysfunction as human beings and how horses operate in a much more, I think, balanced and harmonious way while still maintaining the integrity of order. There's a lot you can learn by just watching a herd of horses.
Yeah, and like you say, they do it without ego. So I think the ego,
that's right,
being out of it, it's kind of unfiltered, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, Hillary. I really appreciate you sharing all that with it. I'd love to unpack this some more, but I'm conscious of your time. And so I'd like to move on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience, who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field, with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions that hopefully we'll get some really insightful answers from you based on your experience with your business and with the horses.
Yeah.
So the first one is, what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I would say self-awareness and emotional intelligence, I think. Yeah.
And certainly from what you've been telling us today, the horses can teach us a lot about that.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
I think the most powerful thing is to create space for them to come. I think that we often just don't create the space. So I think just having that intention of creating space to nurture new ideas or to be inspired, I think is hugely important. So I know, like, as part of my own process, I try to really take like chunks of time that is just dedicated to just really be open and clear my mind, so I can have the space for those ideas to filter through. So I think that's kind of the biggest, the biggest support on that.
That's great advice. I know for myself, I often, when I just go away and do something totally different, that's when ideas for the business often come.
Yes.
All right. What's your favorite tool or system for improving your own productivity and allowing you to be more innovative?
I mean, this is probably obvious and biased, but spending time with my horses, to be honest, like, spending time with the herd, going out for some, horse wisdom is always, very valuable for me in that regards.
And obviously you're really passionate about that, and using your own tool for doing things is kind of proof of the pudding as well.
I think so. In nature too. I mean, I happen to also be very privileged to live atop a mountain. I think nature can often create that sort of space as well. So I think the combination of nature and the horses has, is good medicine for that.
Or just looking at your photos on the website, I'm kind of thinking, oh, gee, I'd love to be there right now.
You should come one day.
Yeah, well, I was talking with Ciel the other day about all the people that I've connected with up in the Vancouver area, so maybe it'll happen soon. All right, what's the best way to keep a project or a client on track?
That's a really great question. I kind of feel like there's not a one answer fits all. The biggest thing that I think I guess adopt with that is listening. And I think really paying attention to what feels like the most supportive and nurturing process for each client. And so I think that, genuine connection and care, and I think like that, CTI calls it that level 3 listening of being curious of where they are and what's going to help them stay the course is important. So I know when I'm talking with each of my clients, I really try to listen. I think beyond maybe my own attachment of what it looks like for them and to what, I may be picking up is going to be the most powerful process for that particular person.
All right, that's great. So really listening and then paying attention to what their individual needs are.
Yeah. I think, and one of the things I often ask people in like my welcome packets, whether it's a program, is what way of facilitation or coaching do they find the most effective for them? So it's getting curious about that instead of me thinking that it has to be what I think. So it's one of the things I often will have a curiosity about and pay attention from their perspective, because of what works well for one person is not always going to work for the next.
Yeah. So it's a highly personalized approach that you do, and that's consistent with what you were telling us about earlier, where you kind of let the horses determine who they're drawn to.
Yeah.
All right. And fifth one is, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
I think just be authentic, really. And you've probably heard that before, but I think just be who you are and, be authentic. And there's nobody else on the planet that's like us. I think, like I tell people, other coaches and stuff, there's a lot of people that facilitate the work with horses. I'm not unique in that way, but I'm unique in the sense of, I am who I am. So I think just coming back to your authenticity and I think the passion connection to your work. And I think staying in that alignment is, all you really need to do, I think, to stand out or, to connect to the people that are going to be attracted to, I think it's not what we do, it's who we are that really attracts people.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you mentioned that you're not the only one doing coaching with horses, which is something that I hadn't discovered before I was connected with you, but certainly you're the only one doing it your way, right? And I think that's a lesson for everybody, that a lot of times I see people saying, well, there's so many people out there doing this, or at the moment we're working on some courses and people saying, oh, there's a lot of people out there doing this course. And I say, well, there's nobody doing it the way you can do it. So
right.
That's a really good message. All right. So what's the future for your business then, Hillary, for the retreats and the property and the herd?
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that I'd mentioned to you before we started recording is I think kind of like my big mission with the horse work is I'd love to bring it into more of the conversation of mainstream of, personal development, and, being recognized as a really powerful ally and supporter of that, alongside some of the other, really incredible things that are out there that people, invest in. So my desire is to, right now I have to do a little bit of like quote unquote selling people, on the experience, and hopefully I want to build it so it just people recognize and the power of it. So being a voice for that. I think I'd love my center to grow into having a reputation of having really reputable and high integrity programs and experiences for people that are, looking to develop, themselves and their vision and their leadership, and, continuing to, support the horses that are here, and also to maybe create a different awareness, even in the horse industry, of how people view horses. A lot of my horses are discarded, and I think they're one of the most valuable teachers that we can have. And so I hope to maybe give people a different awareness of how they view horses and nature and animals, and, have an impact on how we treat the other kind of beings on our planet. So that's sort of my, hope and goal and vision for.
That's a great vision. So what do you do right now to market your business and to market that idea of, the vision of accepting horses as role models in a way for how we can treat one another?
I think it's being visible. I have a podcast myself, and I've, written articles for Huffington Post, and, I think just continuing to do my work and to share and to speak about it, social media and also in conversation. And I think, the thing of just really owning, I think, the vision I have for it, and just, I think, continuing to be kind of courageous and brave in how I show up in it. And I think that has a ripple effect as well. I like to say yes to any opportunity that I have that wants to speak to or explore or share about what this work is. And so I think there's that, right? It's saying yes and letting ourselves be seen in our work, and sharing the passion of it. So that's kind of what it looks like for me.
Okay. And yeah, I actually didn't come across your podcast when I was doing my research, so that was something I slipped up on.
It's new. It's new. It's not, it hasn't been out it's called Women Who Run with Horses. So it's kind of it's a very kind of new development that I just started. So that might be
but
why.
We'll link to that. Yeah. We'll link to that in the show notes, and also the other articles. I know there's quite a few YouTube videos of you speaking about horses and the work you're doing, and also articles and that. So we'll link to some of those in the show notes, and people can follow up some more.
That's great.
All right. So what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to any business owner who wants to be a leader in innovation and in their field?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is, I think that to keep coming back, I think, to what kind of started you off in the process in the first place. So I think that sort of passion of being moved by something. I think anytime we're starting a business or being innovative about something, there's an initial spark that has birthed that. And I think reminding ourselves of what that is continuously is important. I always have to go back to kind of the bigger purpose of my why. So I think that why place. And then I also think the space you hold for yourself, creating space where you can access your creativity, being aware of the things that get in the way of that. And I think making it a priority of really, I think empowering yourself through your process and your vision and connecting to those places of inspiration are really important. So that those would kind of be the things that I would speak to on that.
Great. Okay. So keep coming back to your why and keep making space for creativity. Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Hillary. This has been really great. Where can people reach out to you and say thank you for all that you've shared with us? And obviously we'll point them to your website, or both of your websites, with those amazing photos of that property.
Thank you. Yeah.
So is there anywhere else we should direct them to?
I mean, I can give you like the website. People can find me on Epona Rise Retreat Center or HillarySchneider.com. The podcast is Women Who Run with Horses, and then I'm also on Facebook. So, those would sort of be the main places to find me.
Okay, great. We'll put the links in the show notes to all those spots. Finally, then, who would you like me to interview on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, and why?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I have a name that popped in my head, but I don't know if he'd want to be interviewed? That's a really great question to put me on the spot there. I might need some time to think about that. I always, the people that kind of interest me sometimes are probably, similar to what CL mentioned, is not necessarily people we know that are out there, but I think are doing, kind of courageous things with their own vision and have an interesting story to tell. And, I think in a quiet way are kind of making ground. So, the person that was popping in my head is I have he's a client of mine. He did the coaching with me in leadership, and he works in advertising, and he's brilliant. And I think that especially I think as a guy, I think what I love about him is he has such tremendous heart, and I think a high emotional intelligence, but I think it's just good to sort of have conversations with other men that are offering a different perspective or an energy out there. I think it's important to highlight that in our sort of climate, I think, in the world. So that's why I thought of him, because I think he has, he's very endearing. He has a passion for, the development of people and connection. And he's kind of living it in his own way, but I don't know if he'd want to go up on a podcast. So,
all right. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, he sounds fascinating, and I agree with you. I love to talk to people who are doing, unique things, and they may not necessarily be kind of hugely famous right around the world, but it's great to be connected with, people doing things like you're doing. Yes. Check with him whether he'd be happy to come on the show, and we'd love to talk to him.
I will.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us and your insights with us today, and the stories of the horses and the herd and how you use them to facilitate your coaching programs. And I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, and I'm kind of looking at horses in a totally different way now. Next time I go for a walk and walk past a paddock, I'll pay more attention. So
That's
I wish
great.
you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Yes, thank you. And thanks again for the opportunity to have me on your show and be able to kind of share the power of the horse. So I'm grateful for that.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that fascinating conversation with Hillary, and as I did, noted some lessons from her experience. I particularly loved how she works with horses to help people develop a greater level of their own self-awareness, particularly around those areas that they can then work on to improve. I'd love to know what you took away from Hillary's interview. Leave a comment below the blog post, which can be found at innovabiz.co/HillarySchneider. That is HillarySchneider. HillarySchneider. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/HillarySchneider. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Hillary there, as well as links to all the resources we mentioned. Now, it's well worth going to Hillary's website at the Epona Rise Retreat and having a look at the beautiful photos she has there. It just looks like a spectacular location. Hillary suggested I interview Russell Grimaldi of Ogilvy Common Health Worldwide on a future InnovaBuzz podcast. So, Russell, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of HillarySchneider. Remember to visit innovabiz.co/VIP to access the Transformational Marketing Hub and all of its free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. Stay connected. Head on over to iTunes or Stitcher or Pocket Casts and subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you make sure you'll never miss another episode. We'd also love you to leave us a review, because what you think matters. Take some of the ideas you've heard today and apply them in your business. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions or questions, share them in the comments below the blog post. And remember, if you want to get better marketing results than you ever have, join our fantastic LinkedIn community at the Transformational Marketing Academy. All you have to do is go to innovabiz.co/TMAC. It's free to join. Hope to see you there soon. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from Innovabiz. Remember to be awesome and keep innovating.